Hello and welcome to Accelerating Your Authority. This is the show that helps you to grow your expertise-based business through six figures and beyond. I'm your host, Alastair McDermott, and I interview leaders, consultants, and experts about their business so they can share their stories and advice and their insights for growth. And today my guest is Moira Ghallachóir. Moira shows coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, and service-based entrepreneurs how to build a top-tier income and how to become a sought-after authority with speaking. And that is exactly the kind of person I want to talk about, because I think that building authority is even in the name of this podcast. So Moira, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Alastair. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, so I'm all in on authority. I rebranded my business to call it the Recognized Authority. I think it's something that's hugely important for many people. So let's dig into you and your business and your clients first. Who are your ideal clients and what is the biggest challenge that they're facing?
Yeah, Alastair, I mostly work with female coaches and consultants, and yes, they're struggling to make money. Yes, they're struggling to create sales and get more clients. But more than anything, I believe the clients I work best with are people who want more than just a business that makes money. The people I work with, they have big missions in the world. They see themselves on big stages. They see themselves, creating major transformation on their clients. And they know that they can be an authority, but they've just not found a way that can accelerate that for them.
Yeah, and let me ask you, okay, you mentioned the word acceleration or accelerating, and that's something that I think is important. And we spoke a little bit in the pre-show about that. What is it that actually accelerates the authority building process?
Well, for me, there's no faster way to accelerate your authority than getting on a stage and being seen as an expert in as many rooms, both virtual and live, all over the world. And the accessibility that we have for that right now with the way the world is and after the pandemic, you could literally be speaking in a different country, in a different room every single day of the week if you really wanted to accelerate your authority. But equally, if you were willing to do that once a week, you wouldn't recognize your business within months of doing that. And people would see you as a voice of authority for people around the world as well.
Yeah, and when you're talking about stages and rooms, like you're talking about podcasts, YouTube shows, discussion panels, webinars, things like that.
Yeah, so yes, those, and above that, I would put live events, networking groups, association meetings, anywhere where your ideal client are hanging out live. Pre-recorded podcasts, things like that. They're amazing. I think they're great for authority building, but I think to get an instant impact, especially an instant return, a live audience is always going to be best, and even better in person, although virtual has huge possibilities as well.
Really interesting. Now, one thing I want to mention is we are recording this live to tape. There's no editing, so people are getting us unfiltered. But what you're saying there is that having that live audience where people know that this is real time, is that important? How does that impact it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I don't think that we'll ever find a form of communication of being in the same room as people and being in the energy and the vibe of a story being told, of a message being shared, of emotion being shown, and just that personal connection. And what I found when I started my business, what I was able to do in 20 minutes in a room was literally taking me 6 months posting on social media, because when I started back in 2015, I just tried to play the social media game, right? But it just wasn't working fast enough. And I did not want to become a copywriter. I did not want to become a social media expert. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to help people fast. And I also wanted to help myself build my life as well.
Yeah, really interesting. So what when people go about trying to do this, what mistakes are they making that you see when you're talking to your clients?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that people make is that they put speakers on a pedestal and think that they need to do 10 years in Toastmasters or all these speaker qualifications in order to qualify to be seen as an authority in their field. And that's simply not true. What I teach my clients to have is one message, one story, one offer, and be able to engage with an audience in a room and do that in every room they go to. So it's almost like you create a performance. And if you look at the biggest, best speakers in the world, that's exactly what they're doing. Tony Robbins has done the same content in UPW for almost 40 years. That's a performance. So I teach my clients how to have a version of that and take it to all of the rooms where they can speak in and access their ideal clients. And I think the biggest mistake is people think that that's going to take years to do, and that could actually be done in a day.
Wow. Okay. that certainly is a big difference. All right. Yeah. So the idea of having one message, one offer, and I've heard people call this like a signature talk or a signature presentation that you give. Yeah. Now I really like that, and it's something that I'm working on for myself. Is that, and what I find is that it evolves over time, but it doesn't really, like, you never really start from scratch. There is a natural progression and evolution in the content. When you were starting from scratch and somebody doesn't have something like this, where do you actually start with them?
Yeah, so it really starts with your message. Like, what is the problem you solve? What is the outcome that you deliver? And what is the payoff within that? So you need to solve a big problem. You need to have a big payoff that people want, and they need to have a path and a process that you can't get anywhere else. This is where it's unique to you. And if people believe that you can solve the problem, they like the sound of the payoff, it's highly desirable, they won't be able to stop themselves from wanting what you have to offer because they can't get it anywhere else.
Yeah. Now, I know that people struggle with this thing of it has to be unique because they feel, well, look, I'm doing what, okay, not what 1,000 other people are doing, but I'm certainly doing something that hundreds of other people do. So what makes me unique? How do you help people with that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, like for you, obviously your uniqueness is in the authority building. So you do a lot of things like what other people do, but your whole thing is authority. I teach people speaking, but lots of other people teach people speaking, but I do it from a place of creating a lifestyle around your business and creating big impact in the world. So it's not just about the people you help, it's about you living your dream as you're building your business. But I'm using speaking and sales to do that.
Yeah. And so, and I think a way that I've heard people describe it is, what's your angle on it, or what's the perspective you're coming to that problem from, or with, because your perspective on that is going to be different than other people. Even if they've done similar things, they're going to have different worldviews, different goals. So
totally. And you know what really defines your strategy is your story. So what is it about your story should really create interest in your strategy or in your framework or in your content and your talk, right? Like, how did you get to the point where you're standing in front of the room in front of us today to be able to qualify yourself to talk about what you're talking about? So if you can land that well, then people will be so excited to hear your strategy because you have a story behind it. Right? When I started my business first, like all I had was a girl who had a moment of like, what the hell is this? Left my job, started a business, and I was in my business. So my story was that I did that. And then the people who worked with me first, they wanted to leave their job and started a business. So then it evolved in terms of how my business grew to 6 figures super fast. And then how I was able to teach other entrepreneurs how to create 6 figures super fast, and then multiple 6 figures, and then start traveling the world. So it's almost like the story needs to start, but it grows with you.
Right. And I think that an important thing there is, because I know that some people are going to find the concept of just having one message, one offer, they're going to find that hard. And because I talk to people a lot about specialization, I have an entire podcast called the Specialization Podcast, which is basically an audio training course in how to niche down. But I know that when I'm talking to people about reducing and kind of simplifying down, that they find that they have a lot of resistance around that. Do you find that as well when you talk to people about having that one message, one offer?
Yeah, I do, because people want to do a bit of everything and they feel like they need to have a laundry list of things that they offer people as opposed to zoning in on one thing that they do really, really well. And I think what's really important when people come to me, they tend to be charging a lot less than they could be for their services. Like one person who hired me like a couple of months ago, she was charging $100 an hour for her service. By the end of our first session, she was charging $15,000 and got her first client. So technically what she was able to make with that one client would have taken her like 2 years.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when people understand that piece, that how powerful that can be, like if you have a 10K offer, you just need 10 clients to make 6 figures.
Yeah.
And are you willing to do this just to get your 10 clients? Well, yes.
Yeah. And so it's about having, and I think then that this also goes back to something you mentioned earlier on, people who have big missions and help people to undergo a major transformation. And I think that's a key part of it, is that the major transformations are what are valuable and
Absolutely.
that are difficult.
Yeah, and people don't see their own value. Like they're mostly, people are leading with their process, with their credibility, with their education. They're not seeing like the real value is in who will the person be as a result of working with you. That's the real transformation. And when you're making offers, your offer is the transformation. It's not the time with you. It's not the pieces. It's not the stuff that people get. It is literally the transformation people will have as a result of investing with you, in themselves, with you.
Yeah. So, okay. So to recap, you're helping consultants and coaches, particularly women, who are looking to to make more money and kind of maybe even change their lifestyle and build a business around their lifestyle. And so you're helping them to get on stages. You're helping them to get into rooms, onto things like this podcast, and you're talking to them about the importance of when they're up there having a performance, having a message, a signature offer, and a signature presentation of some kind, and having that, and that is built around helping people with helping their clients with a major transformation.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so are there any other mistakes or tips that you have for people who are thinking about doing something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they wait to be asked to speak as opposed to asking. And I made this mistake in the beginning, that people don't know you want to speak at their events unless you ask them. So you need to get in rooms and let event hosts know that you're available to provide support and information and inspiration for their audiences. And unless they know, you'll never be invited. So I think a mistake that people make is that they wait to be asked. And in this game, you've got to be the one who raises your hand and says, I've got something I think that would help your audience. And if you did that in every room that you ever go into, and you connect with an event host and let them know that, you'll get booked.
Right.
Unless you're boring. Caveat.
So what can you do to make it interesting and not boring?
Well, I've seen people that are not that exciting do really well when they have a really powerful message. That's why that's the first place that I start with my clients. So I think that somebody who is, let's say sedate and quite low key, if they have a very powerful message, that can be a game changer for them. But nothing can really take away from having a command, energetic energy, like to be really energized when you're on the stage, because you're going to get people to move. You're going to get people to get involved with you. And the more your audience are involved, the more they participate, the more they will want what you have to offer.
Yeah, really interesting. Okay, so I'm just conscious of time, so I want to move on. But before I do, can you give us a resource that might be useful for people who are listening to this and are interested in learning more about how they can actually do this?
Absolutely. So I've been doing this since 2015, and I can promise you and your audience that Moira has made a lot of mistakes, a lot of seriously costly mistakes. But the good news is, because I've made them, you don't have to. So I've listed all the major mistakes that you can make that can prevent you from making money with speaking, from leaving money in the table in the rooms that you do go in. I've put them all on a really cool guide, and I've given examples of how to avoid them. So I've listed 7. There are more, but if you know what these 7 are, at least if you're going to an event, you can look at these and you'll probably find, oh my gosh, I was going to do that. I'm not going to do that now. So it could literally save you a fortune to have this on your desktop or in your mobile phone before you speak.
Awesome. And where can people get that?
I mean, I can share a link with you. Would that be the easiest thing to do? All right, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I want to ask you about your own business and what's been important for you as you've grown your business. Can you tell me a bit about that?
I think the thing that has been two things have been most important to me: the impact my decisions and my success have had on my family and friends, that I've seen other friends go for it with their business, and I've obviously been able to support them to do that. So that's been huge. I've had about 3 or 4 friends who've also left their jobs to start their own profitable businesses. And also, like being able to take time away when your family need it. Like I lost both my parents in the last 5 years. I have an aunt who's 102. She's a nun, very famous in Ireland. But being able to take time away from your life when family things happen, and being the person who's got that flexibility in order to do that. And just one other thing that has made a huge impact for me is the freedom that I have to travel. Because I realized when I started speaking, Alastair, that I could find rooms in New York, in Paris, in Tokyo, in Australia and Bali, and do the same thing that I was doing in Ireland. So it really took my life and my lifestyle to a whole other level.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think that is one of the best things about being self-employed and having your own business. Is that freedom. So okay, so talking about resources, is there a business book or resource that's been important for you as you've grown your business?
I read a lot. I mean, I could have 3 or 4 books on the go at any one time, but this one here from Gary Keller is one that I'm absolutely devouring at the moment. I've listened to an audio. I've also bought the printed version, as you can see. But the one thing by Gary Keller has just took my focus and because at every stage of your business, things are more important. Right now, it's really important for me not to be on sales calls as much and to be really working and developing my business and bigger long-term strategy. And this has really been a game changer for me, actually. So that's a book I would recommend.
Cool. The one thing, yeah, and that's come up on my other podcast on the Recognized Authority. That's come up quite a few times as a book, because I always ask about books, and that one has come up quite a few times before as well. Awesome. Okay, so what is the number 1 tip that you would give to somebody who wants to accelerate their authority?
My number 1 tip would be decide that you are going to do this and cut yourself off from all other possibilities whatsoever. And that's what the word decide means. It comes from the Latin word to cut. So when you cut yourself off from all other possibilities, forget your plan B, close the back door, and just decide and go for it. And if you do that, you can't not but fail. And it's who we become along the journey that matters anyway, but it starts with a decision.
Awesome. I love that. Moira Ghallachóir, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
I'm on all the social media platforms. It's super easy to find me with my first name and then just put in the NI afterwards, because there's literally no other Moira Ghallachóir as far as I know, which is great for ranking on Google.
Awesome. And I hope I didn't butcher your name too much.
No, you said it perfectly. And it's great to speak to somebody who's so close by.
A Dublin Irish accent as opposed to the Northern Irish accent. So, but it is great to speak with somebody with an Irish accent here on the podcast. So thank you so much. And thank you for coming on.
It's been absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Alastair.